Everyone, and greetings based on your time zone. We appreciate you being here for this exciting edition of the EORE Hour. I'm Lubna Alem, the Secretary of the EORE Advisory Group, and on behalf of the Advisory Group, it's my pleasure to welcome each of you to today's webinar. For those attending for the first time, the EORE Hour is an initiative launched by the EORE Advisory Group in late 2021. These monthly webinars, they are held on the last Wednesday of every one, featuring volunteer hosts discussing a variety of key topics related to explosive ordnance risk education. To date, we have hosted around 9 events, and if you missed any of them, you're going to find the recordings available on the EORE Advisory Group's YouTube channel, and I'll share all the relevant links in the chat. Today's session is brought to you by the Mine Action Area of Responsibility and will take the form of an engaging panel featuring 3 experts in EORE and data. I'm delighted to introduce our moderator, Christelle. She's the Global Coordinator of Mine Action Area of Responsibility, and she will guide us through the presenters, the objectives and the flow of the webinar, as well as share recent developments from the Mine Action Area of Responsibility. We hope today's discussion will inspire new ideas and opportunities for collaboration as we delve into these topics together. But before we dive into our webinar and listen to our speakers and the presentations, I just want to tell you some housekeeping rules. So our webinar will run for around 1 hour, and it's going to be followed by a 15-minute networking circle. And the networking circle is a valuable opportunity to connect with professionals from around the globe dedicated to risk education. And we encourage you to participate in this interactive segment. It will basically take the form of breakout rooms, and this segment, it's not recorded, and it's going to take place after the conclusion of the webinar and a conclusion of the presentations and the Q&A. I kindly ask you to please keep your microphones muted during the presentations. And as for the questions, please feel free to submit your questions in the chat throughout the session. So as we go, submit the questions and I'll collect them and send them to Christelle at the end for the Q&A segment. If we don't have time to address all the questions, any remaining questions that we have, we are going to compile them in a document, and our presenters and experts are going to answer them in a written form, and then we are going to send it to all the attendees after the conclusion of the webinar, along with other resources recommended by the speakers, and also the recording of the webinar that's going to be available in the EORE Advisory Group YouTube channel. So thank you very much. And now, without further ado, I'm delighted to hand the floor over to Christelle. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Lubna. It's an honor for me to moderate this panel discussion. So why are we having this discussion? Well, because we are interested in inspiring coordinators as well as Mine Action AoR members and risk education experts to really take leadership in developing partnership and also coordinating better to provide information to people who are living near contamination that can save lives, their own lives, their children's lives, their communities. So we think that there is a lot we can do by working in partnership with others to address some of the key challenges we face. So the Mine Action AoR has a network of roughly 30 coordinators and co-coordinators in 16 emergencies. And in many of them, we have access problem. We cannot reach the whole country. And the partnership with IOM Displacement Tracking Matrix has been critical in trying to addressing this challenge and reaching remote areas and collecting information about risk, explosive ordnance risk, And you will hear from Daunia Pavone, who is a Senior Information Management Analyst with IOM on this collaboration. And then we also have two coordinators who are going to talk about what we do in Ukraine, what they do in Ukraine, and also in Ethiopia to try to reduce gaps and duplication in the deployment of risk education teams. Because sometimes you have the situation where you have communities who says, well, I have different NGOs sending risk education teams here, and why do we have several who are coming? And then you have other geographic areas where nobody has come. So it is critical for the different mine action organization to coordinate in order to improve efficiency and reduce duplications. So Marie in Ukraine, our coordinator for the mine action AoR in Ukraine with UNDP, she will talk about the tools she set up to try to address this problem. And then we will go to May Munoz, who works with UNMAS in Ethiopia with the MA AoR, and who is seconded by MSB, the Swedish Contingency Agency. She will also talk about a tool they've developed in order to improve coordination of risk education in Ethiopia. So let's start with Daunia and then Marie and then May. May will present and then we'll have a Q&A. But I just wanted to say that there is a bit of a gender issue here because all our presenters are women. And I have to send Dimitri's apologies. We had a man who was supposed to present, but he had an emergency. That's why he's not here. Yeah, that's it. So giving the floor first to Daunia to speak on our collaboration. Thank you.
Checking that you hear me and you see my slides. Excellent. Welcome to this part of the presentation. Thank you for having me, Lubna and Christelle. As said, my name is Daunia Pavone, and I work with DTM, which is the Displacement Tracking Matrix. It's a part of IOM that this year celebrates 20 years of its existence in collecting data and sharing data on displacement, on movements, on needs, on resources, etc. I'm going to give you an overview of DTM, very brief, but then I'm going to show you what we have done with the colleagues from Mine Action AoR with a couple of examples, and send you my main message, which is DTM is present in a number of countries, and we are there in order to provide information and data to the wider humanitarian community. So do get in touch so that we can find the best way to inform the response and inform the Mine Action colleagues so that they can take the decisions they need to take for their response. Let's see if I can move the slides. Confirm that you see a beautiful blue map. Yeah?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So this is a bit of a summary of what DTM does and where it does it. We have worked in 127 countries in the last 20 years. Currently, we have about 100 countries where we're active. We don't do the same thing in every country. That's really important to remember, because in some countries we collect data on displacement through key informants. In others, we collect them through household surveys. In other countries, we monitor flows of migrants or just movements through countries with individual interviews and other methods and methodologies. So every country will have specific tools that they are using. And this is really important for the engagement to make sure that you as colleagues and partners know what tool is being used in the country where you use, so that you can make better use of that information and you can get the information that you need. The other numbers are there for you to kind of consider the size of the efforts, including our 7,000 and such team members that include mostly a large number of enumerators, data collectors, and so on. So that, in a way, to answer to the main one of the things that Christelle said in her introduction, DTM you will find in many of the countries where you're working, and the presence might be beneficial for your data to get the data that you need. And so it's probably worth looking into it and see what can be done together with DTM in order to help you fill the gaps that in knowledge and information that you have. Of course, DTM will not be able to do everything because we're not employing mine action experts, but we can provide you with information that you might need that might not necessarily have to be collected through mine action experts. We started together with a number of colleagues from the global clusters and AORs in 2007 an initiative called DTM and Partners. And we have all the outputs of our common joint work on this website that is called DTM and Partners Toolkit, where you will find a number of things, including specific information on how or what DTM is and what DTM does, videos and different resources, including comic books on how DTM works with non-DTM colleagues, like mine action colleagues. And you also have a page that is dedicated to DTM for specific sectors and themes, one of them being, of course, mine action. So you can click on the wrong one, the yellow one, not the one that is pointing, the arrow is pointing at, but the yellow one here. And you will find what tools we have developed together with the mine action colleagues from the AoR in order to facilitate that conversation and cooperation between data collectors, DTM, and data users, mine action colleagues. This is what the mine action page, when you click on the right blue or yellow button, looks like. And you have tools, but you also have an introduction of what you can and cannot do with DTM when it comes to mine action. One of the tools that we developed together with our colleagues in the Mine Action AoR was something called the DTM Field Companion for Mine Action. We have focused on one of the methods of data collection that are mostly used in the countries where DTM works, which is key informant interview. So these are non-specialized key informants. They are not mine action experts. The questions are asked by enumerators who are not mine action experts. And yet we realize working together that we still can provide through specific questions asked in a specific way with a specific language information that the mine action colleagues can then use to go further. This is in no way going to be sufficient to what the mine action colleagues need, but it can be used in different ways to start to fill the gaps, to advocate for a larger mine action coordination presence and mine action presence in general. You will find this, of course, on the same page that I showed you before. And I wanted to give you just a few ideas of what the DTM colleagues through the key informants interview can provide for the use of mine action colleagues. We have realized working with the AoR that there is the possibility to give information about risks, but mostly, to information about gaps on mine action risk education. It's not called, it's explosive ordnance risk education. So locations where this has happened, locations where this hasn't happened. But it's also helpful to prioritize location for your technical or non-technical surveys and follow-up actions, including clearance, victim assistance, and explosive ordnance risk education. You can use the information from the DTM to prioritize locations where explosive ordnance negatively impact access to livelihoods and freedom of movement, as well as identify groups most in need of explosive ordnance risk education. The strength of this tool, of the DTM assessment done through key informants, is that it goes in most, if not all, the locations, or tends to go to all locations that are impacted by displacement, but of course within the limits of reality, and sometimes access is difficult. But it does have a very wide coverage of the areas and countries that are affected by displacement, to a very detailed level, to a level of location. So the information you'll get at the end is going to be about the locations, about each location, and you can also compare between locations. So it's a very good tool for an initial prioritization and comparison between locations. We have done a few field testing of the field companions. We have more, but I just wanted to focus on 2 countries and what we actually achieved together. In Ethiopia, we worked with UNMAS through the AoR, the global AoR, and UNMAS identified the information that DTM could provide, including IDP's perception of explosive ordnance contamination in their communities. Remember, these are perceptions. We don't go into the technical level. We don't have the stuff for that. And then DTM and UNMAS worked together using the field companion to select the questions that they mostly needed, and then, of course, verify them and adjusted them to the context. DTM then collected the information and shared the information with UNMAS. And UNMAS used that information to better understand the situation in Tigray, for example, but also to make the case for the activation of the mine action AoR in the country. So that's a very practical example. And we have colleagues from Ethiopia that will tell you how this then evolved in new and exciting activities, joint activities. The other example I wanted to give you was about Nigeria, where the mine action AoR did exist and partnered with DTM to identify the information they needed. Again, we always start from that. What information do you really need? And then they identified these information needs, including locations where communities had witnessed explosions, but also where they had not received risk education. DTM and mine action partners then developed the questions that could be used. And one other very, very important for us outcome of this, even if we didn't think of that in the beginning, the colleagues in Nigeria realized that the mine action colleagues could really support DTM enumerators by providing them risk education, so that when they go to the field, they are much safer than without it. So they did that, and we're very grateful for that. Then DTM enumerators collected information, DTM cleaned the information, and then shared them with the mine action AoR colleagues on a regular basis. That then analyzed the data. Remember that in order to analyze, at least, to make sense of data, you really need to have that sectoral expertise. Mine action colleagues have to be part of that analysis. So they analyzed the DTM data together with data from other sources, and managed to prioritize communities, locations and communities for explosive ordnance risk education activities. The mine action AoR also enhanced the HRP prioritization system, incorporating additional criteria sourced from DTM data. So that's another really good and exciting success story from the field that was only possible because mine action colleagues and DTM colleagues worked together, clearly identifying the information and what was possible for DTM to collect, where were the limitations, where were the strengths, and then whose role it was to analyze. And mine action colleagues were able to really strategically use the data and the analysis to improve their response. And this is one of the analysis maps and charts from that analysis that the Nigeria colleagues did. These are also just examples of explosive ordnance risk education sessions, as I just mentioned before. And the last maybe message for my part of this presentation is we as DTM are very decentralized. So each country DTM coordinator would know best what is possible, not possible in their country. So there is a way to contact the DTM coordinator in a country, and you have a couple of options there. You can either contact DTM support or PIM support, and we can send you the email address, or you can just by yourself very quickly go on the DTM IOM.int page, choose the country as you see on the slide, and at the bottom of the page of the country, you will always have the email of the coordinator of DTM in that country. And that is really important because the direct contact with the coordinators are always the fastest way to start discussing and collaborating together. Of course, we at global level on the AoR side, but also on my side and the DTM side, we're always available. So if you want to contact us, if you want to put us in copy, we are going to do our best to facilitate that conversation because we have learned so much by working together at global level and in the field. And that is all for my presentation. If you have any specific questions, I think we'll get them at the end, right? But do note them down. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Daunia. And I'm also encouraging people participating in this call to please put in the chat if you think that your country would be a good situation to implement a collaboration with the DTM. I want to say that we also implemented it in the DRC and in Mali with also similar positive results for our operation. Now, next we are going to go to Kyiv with Marie Dahan. Marie, over to you.
Thank you very much, Christelle. Gonna try to share my screen. And hopefully you can see it in the right format. Good afternoon, everybody. So I will present you today two initiatives that we developed in Ukraine to support the coordination of risk education. So just to give you a bit of a background, I joined Ukraine in January 2023, and one of the issues raised by the partners was regarding coordinating risk education and the fact that there were some duplications, but also some gaps. So there was a need of how we could improve the coordination. So just to give you a quick recap, this is how the Mine Action AoR is in Ukraine. So it is the UN lead agency is UNDP, and it's co-coordinated by a national NGO, Ukrainian Deminers Association. And our members are UN agencies, national and international NGOs. And we have observers members that are national authority, some international organization, but also commercial companies. And then we have two working groups, one on risk education, this is what interests us today, and then we also have a victim assistance working group. So how to better coordinate risk education in Ukraine. So we came up as a conversation with the NGOs involved in risk education with a solution that could help. So the idea is avoid duplications, but also avoid or covering the gaps of delivering risk education, especially in the areas that are close to the front line and heavily affected by bomb shellings and as a result, explosive ordnance. So we decided to run a pilot project in one of the regions called Kharkiv in Ukraine. And because we didn't have access to a lot of different tools, we tried to be as simple as possible in the way to design that. And also we didn't want to add another layer for the partners that would be a lengthy reporting process. So we decided that Kobo would be maybe the quickest and the easiest solutions for them. And we wanted them not to take more than 5 minutes to report on their planning activity. So the idea was at the end of each month, partners will tell us where they plan to conduct EORE activities in the following months. And if we see duplications, then we reach out to the partners who are planning to conduct activities in the same location. So just to give you some slightly more details. So basically in the Kubo tools, partners have to say, of course, the name of the organizations, how many teams will conduct risk education sessions, and also their targeted beneficiaries, meaning that if they are only targeting children or it's adults, so that could also help us understand if they were targeting the same people or not. And then they had to tell us at the district level where they plan to conduct activities, because we decided that the distinction or the separation will be at the district level. In Ukrainian, we call it Promada level, except for the capital city for the region, because usually it's a large city. So if partners are working within that same city, that should be fine, not to have duplications. So they fill in the form, the Kubo tool, then the Mine Action AoR IM will check the data. And if there are any duplication, then reach out to the partners who are targeting the same area. And then usually it would be like a consensual conversation between the partners to ensure they're not ending up at the same place at the same month. And then we produce the map at the end of the month and we share it with all the partners. I will show you in the next slide how it looks like. So we started the project in June 2023, and we started only with Kharkivska Oblast. It's the map on the right side. And after a few months where we understood it was working well, we expanded to another oblast, Mykolaiv, another region in Ukraine. So as you can see in the map, so you have the distinctions of the different districts, so the Hromada. And if the color coding is that if there is only one partner, it will show in the lightest blue, and then 2, and then 3, and then 5. So for us, what would interest us would be the 2, 3, and 5 same partners targeting the same location for the same months. And then most likely partners will discuss together how not to target the same area. But this is how it looks like. And also it gives a good understanding of the partners to see where the others are working and planning to work in the future. We did it with Mykolaiv. So as you can see in Mykolaiv region, there were less partners and less conflicted Hromada where they could have potential contamination. So we did this and we ran it through until the end of 2023. And in 2024, we actually stopped doing this because, as you may know, partners are reporting their activities and also their risk education activities into IMSMA, the Information Management System for Mine Action, that is run by the Ukrainian Mine Action Center. And this functionality has been developed within IMSMA starting from January 2024. Therefore, partners will report their planning of their activities and can also see where the others are planning to do, which would help. So in the end, it was just like a transition period, but that was like actually what helped partners coordinating EORE during that time, and we are pleased to see that this is in a better way into the IMSMA system. It was continued for Ukraine. The second initiative I will present, it's regarding some analysis and correlations between civilian casualty of explosive ordnance and risk education sessions. So earlier this year, we had access from the Ukrainian government to civilian casualty data. These are verified information. And we have quite some details about the location, how it happens, what the person was doing when it happens, etc., etc. So first, we try to understand, see how we could better test and analyze the data. And one of the key findings that we find first is that in Ukraine, 90% of civilian casualties are males, 80% men and 10% boys. And also, we were able to differentiate between, I would say, type of activities or type of profession that are civilian casualties. And the main profession that is affected are farmers. I will show you the map just in the next slide. And then the second thing that we tried to do in order to see if there were any help possible for the risk education planning was to layer risk education sessions that were conducted in the area with civilian casualty. And we could see that, as you can see in the slide, that while males represent men represent 80% of civilian casualties, they only represent 14% of the total people who are attending EORE sessions. So that's something that could also help partners who are developing EORE activities. For instance, some NGOs have a tailored risk education session, especially for farmers, or how to, even though women or children are attending risk education, how they can better share their knowledge with their parents or with adults. So yes, so the first map, and right now I'm showing you maps, but the next level for us will be to have an online system, which is called IMS, that will be able to show in an enhanced way those data. So as you can see in the first map, we have the civilian casualties since the beginning of the full-scale invasion until I think it was March or April 2024. And you can see farmers at the bottom are the main category of, I would say, professional activities that are represented in the casualty toll of explosive ordnance. And then the second map that I'm showing you is regarding the correlation between risk education sessions and civilian casualty. For this one, I did not take the overall map of Ukraine because I thought it would be quite difficult to read. So I just took one oblast, one region of Ukraine, which is Kharkiv. And as you can see, men represent almost 80% of the civilian casualties, but they are the lowest represented in terms of risk education sessions. But also, it helps understand that the area where we had a lot of risk education sessions, but also high civilian casualties. So that also helped to understand that if you are in an area where you have a lot of civilian casualties, what is the intensity or the level of delivering risk education sessions in that area. So that also something that can inform the mine action partners who want to deliver risk education sessions. That would be it from my side, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Marie, and thank you for your leadership setting up this system, before IMSMA was online, when there was a real need to try to prevent gaps and duplication in the deployment of EORE teams in Ukraine. So really appreciate your work. Let's move on to May Munoz, sorry, I hope I pronounced your name right. And May, over to you on the MA AoR initiatives in Ethiopia to address this issue. Thank you. Thanks. You have, I think, 15 minutes.
Yes, thanks, Crystal. I'll try to make it 15 minutes or shorter than that. Actually, we have one part is explaining what is a mine action AoR, and I would send my sincere. Dimitri send sincere an apology. He couldn't join for that. Dimitri is our coordinator for mine action in Ethiopia. So basically, on the Ethiopia side, just only the background of how MA AoR operational only in early 2024. We have only very few partners in Ethiopia, unfortunately. And of course, we have like issues with fragmented EORE activities, prioritization of the contaminated districts in Tigray and Afar. It requires coherent on implementation and need a one-stop shop on planning of activities. And by addressing this, UNMAS design a dashboard for sector giving instant overview of like a 3W, like who does what and what is the status of the activity. So mainly the AoR developed the conventional way of like collecting the data through an Excel form or an email or bilateral discussion or coordination. So all of this different strategy of data collection, we try to compile it in one consolidation of data. So it's either some of them are like bilateral discussion with the partners because some of them they don't want to fill in the form. So this is an issue of like reporting as well. And some of them we do have like a constructed form. Unfortunately, some of the partners fill it up, and some of them they will just like send an email to us like this is where we are and this is updated. So we compile it. We used for this consolidation, we only used Google Sheet. So we compiled to Google Sheet. So we send the form to them, we fill out the form, the IOM could fill out the form, clean the data, and then fill it in the Google Looker Studio. So this is how it looks like right now. So the reason why we use the Google Looker Studio, it's so since it's a real-time data, partners can fill in the form. We consolidate the data in real-time data, and it can produce an interactive map, and the dashboard is self-managed. So once the data filled in, so it will automatically update the data. Probably I can show you how does the Google Lookers will look like. And so this is always been presented. This we presented to the AoR meeting, coordination meeting. So you will see, identify which areas has more concentration of the partners. Of course, the bigger the circle is, that means there's more partners on that location on the WOREDA. So we have like 4 partners. What are the activities they're going in? And so this is a very convenient tool of how can easily identify which areas are the priority of the partners, and they can only talk within the sector of area. This is also the reason why it's very easy to consolidate the data, because it's versatile of how you collect the data. This includes like several partners. We only have like 5 partners, that including the Red Cross, given that Red Cross is covering hard to reach areas. So this is very important on capturing all the data for the EORE. So I think that the next slide would be, this is mainly the activity of the EORE. So this includes like, we can see like what is the status of the partners and how many partners are working in different regions, and also looking at the planning period. So we see the planning period. This is from some of the partners as multi-year planning. So we include the multi-period premium from 2024 to 2026. As you can see, we also include the planned activity for those funded and unfunded activities. So for the EORE, and also some mine action activity as well. So this would fit in. So if there any duplication, I mean, we say there's some duplication, but upon looking at the WOREDA level discussion, this goes to the regional office discussing like what is the target group, what KBELA are we looking at, what the target population. So mainly the complementation of both the target population. It complements, it avoids the duplications within the WOREDA level. Sorry, the WOREDA is like a district in Ethiopia. So this is how we do the coordination of mine action AoR in Ethiopia. So this will lead from data collection from the partners. It would lead the identification of prioritization. So mine action UNMAS created a priority location of which, based on the data that we collected through DTM, contamination assessment of UNMAS contamination and population movement and some other indicators that were included for doing the prioritization. So as you can see, it's like the dots. The dot shows all the partners working in EORE only. So this would complement that most of the partners are mainly on the high risk and high and medium risk priority warada in Ethiopia. And in terms of, like Daunia was saying, how do we use the data in terms of identifying priority location, priority of the EORE activities? This will include the population movement where we plot the first, the triangle and the hazard. You will see these are the UNMAS assessment and mine action assessment for the current contamination is. So we plot all the current IDP sites. So it seems that there are some within 1 kilometer to 5 kilometers away. It's within the contaminated site. So this is how we do the planning of how we identify prioritizing of the EORE activities. That would help the partners as well in identifying which areas they're going to prioritize, given that we have mine action has very limited capacity to assess the whole Ethiopia itself. I think I would stop there.
Fascinating. Thank you so much. As you were talking, I was thinking it would be nice for the EORE Advisory Group to give you feedback on this tool. I mean, look at the results also, and perhaps, provide it to all the countries as a public good. So congratulations, May, for developing this tool. Okay, so now we are going to start looking at the question and answer we have received. And the first one will be to Marie concerning this mismatch between the EORE participation and the EORE casualties. The fact that most casualties are men, yet the people who are going to the EORE sessions are women. Can you please comment on that? This is a question from Alejandro Nievas. Thank you.
Thank you, Christelle. And I was actually typing the response, so I'm happy to share it. So what I was trying to say is that we don't have any very precise data while the reasons behind it. But one thing, some of the feedback we received from the partners who are delivering EORE is, first of all, I would say men are less interested in attending EORE sessions, and I would say also maybe more preoccupied by ensuring that they provide funding or sufficient funding for their family. So they are more preoccupied by going to work instead of attending those sessions. And also, as you may know, we have conscriptions in Ukraine because of the war. So a lot of men are conscripted and are going to the front line. So maybe that's one of the few reasons. And in addition, the majority of risk education beneficiaries in Ukraine are children, because the risk education sessions are delivered in schools or in other education institutions. So that's maybe the few things that can explain why we have such a difference between casualties and risk education sessions.
Thanks, Mary. And now moving on to Daunia. Daunia, there's about 5 questions to you. I know you've answered partly to some, but if you want to comment further, especially there was a question from Betty Oliver. Is it possible for DTM to support in tracking all locations for returning and IDPs who have joined their families in communities? Asking about South Sudan, but even more broadly, if you could answer this question, please.
Yeah, do you want me to take all of them one by one?
Yes, okay.
Yeah, okay,
yes.
okay. So I am not completely sure about the question. What I can tell you is this, maybe it's about clarifying what DTM, for example, does usually. So if I can share my screen, maybe that's clear for everybody. Can everybody see a very, very boring Excel sheet?
Yes.
Okay, so what DTM usually does with this tool of the key informants interviews, it ends up on the website looking similar to this. Each row is a site or a location. For each one of them, you have the number of households and the number of individuals in that site, when the site started, whether it's a rural or urban, and the reasons for displacement. So if that's what you mean by knowing how many people, how many IDPs are in a specific place, that's the answer is yes. If I didn't understand the question, do let me know better. So that would be the first answer. When it comes to returnees, it is often the case that IOM does the same. DTM tracks also returnees at community level. What you need to understand is that the data collection is done in the location. So whoever is present in the location is going to be counted. If people are not present at the location, they won't be counted. So usually you have a clear understanding whether or not these people are displaced within the country, or they're returning from another country, or they're returning from displacement inside the country. So that is the type of information that you get. I hope that was clear. Second question.
Can I just add a follow-up question on this point? Do you also ask communities or IDPs what are their intentions? Do you know about their do you know, for instance, okay, in 1 month, 2,000 IDPs are going to return to that location?
Okay. So the issue is the following. We do different things in different countries. So in some countries, we do intention surveys. However, if you do intention surveys, and this is really important for colleagues to understand, if you do intention surveys with key informant interviews, you're asking, let's say, 3 people per community. We know how sensitive and how political that can be. We also know that if you ask a key informant something about intentions, they will tell you, or they're aware of their intentions. They're not aware of all the community's intentions. So we tend not to do that. We try to use methods that go to the household level at least, for understanding the intentions of that household. It's a very difficult thing to do, but more and more IOM is taking a very prominent role also in general in the durable solution point, what is a landscape. So we're doing more and more of those. Again, keeping in mind that we don't do harm. We're working with data responsibility in mind, meaning safe, ethical, and effective data management. And that includes looking at the right method to collect the information that we need. So that would be a yes. However, we don't do that asking key informants. Any follow-up questions?
Yes.
Okay. The second question, sorry?
Go ahead with the next question.
The second question I saw was, do we collect data in the Middle East about that can be useful for mine action colleagues? I don't know. I don't find it anymore. I just saw it in the beginning. Yes, we have in the past collected data in various countries of Middle East and North Africa. What you'll see is I also included in the chat the link where to go to find the data, but you need to remember one thing. Mine action related or explosive ordnance related information can be very sensitive because it is linked to conflict. And therefore, in a number of cases, they are not shared through the website. We have a website where all the data that are safe to share publicly are uploaded. For those data, you need to ask the DTM coordinator through your organization. And we share them on a need-to-know basis. We share them through data sharing agreements. with, for example, the Mine Action AoR or UNMAS or protection cluster, depending on the data. So we are trying to, again, make sure that the data is not misused for the, creating harm to the people we're supposed to be there to support. And therefore, a lot of the times when the data is sensitive, we need to find a different way of sharing data. The recommendation I gave in the beginning, at the end of my presentation, contact the DTM coordinator in country, put me in the CC so that I can facilitate that exchange, stands. So anytime you need specific data or you just need to understand if they have data, you can do that. Maybe on that, remember that what I showed before is that you have a list of locations where displacement communities live. And for you and for your job, as our colleagues, both Maria and May have shown us, this is the basic information you need to have in order to plan anything. So the list of communities, displaced communities, are definitely something you need. To give an example of, there are certain information that might not have mine or explosive in the text, but you still are able to use that for your work. And each location will tell you how big the community is, how many people, how many families live there. So that's something else to keep in mind. Nigeria, Abdullahi Mustafa, can mine action actors access the DTM database in Nigeria? If so, what is the process for partners to obtain access? So this is the issue I was talking about sensitive data. We don't just share data that are not sensitive as we do with the public safe data. So the first step, you go on the website and see if any of the data that are publicly shared is useful for you. If not, what you do is you contact the DTM colleague in the country and explain why you need this data. Because again, sometimes if a researcher asks us for data, we might say no. But if a mine action actor asks us for data, we want that mine action actors to have the data and we want to share them. We just want to make sure it's shared for a very specific defined purpose and with the people that can act on it. Mozambique, Sebastian is asking if DTM data on Mozambique, are they capturing mine action data? Yes. So that's a good example of why we wanted to create that field companion. It's because I just went online, and Sebastian, you can do the same. You select the country, and then you go on data sets, and then you have all the data sets there in the form of Excel sheets. I went through it, and I found that there are information about risks. So the question that they ask in Mozambique is, to which risks are men, boys, women, and girls, in 4 different questions? What are the main risks that they run? And one of the answer is explosive ordnance. However, it's together with another answer. And so that's a problem, because then you cannot use them right away. And so there needs to be a bit of a work done together with the mine action colleagues so that you get what you want at the end from each question. And this is why under the leadership of Christelle, we really worked on questions that make sense also when you analyze them for your purpose. Sometimes you might have information about a presence of explosive ordnance in the reasons for displacement, because some communities might have been displaced because of that. So it's a bit of a cumbersome process at the moment. We are working through our different systems to be able to answer those questions much faster, but we're not there yet. So you do need to look country by country on the specific information that they have. If you don't find anything, do contact the DTM coordinator.
Daunia, I have to stop you for the lack of time. Unfortunately, there's a huge amount of interest in the DTM. I would encourage all the colleagues who've been asking questions to look at the link that you've provided, to look at the toolkit that we've developed over the past 3 years. See if you find what you need. If not, contact us through Lubna or directly to me. and we will try to address your questions, but most of them are actually have been addressed in the toolkit. Perhaps one question to May. I see that John Edwards was interested in this IMS solution. Is it easy for you to share this tool that you've developed with other MAOR?
Yes, it's very easy. So, I mean, the reason why the Google Lookers is outside the IMS because of, I mean, the technicality and then the ability of IMS to provide a timeline. So there are some certain, interface that IMS cannot provide that supports the AoR. So that's why we're looking at more on different way of how to probably visualize the planning tool. So that the Google Lookers, yes, you can share it and easy. So, I mean, the Google Lookers can be captured in any other form of data collection. Can it be a COBO? Can it be survey 123? And anything that they do the data collection, can be done on the Google Lookers as well. And the IMS, I'm not sure how it will be globally adapted, but there are some limitations that it cannot be fit on all the coordination structure that we do have. And some of the IMS, we are also using it for data analysis, like we showcase when we do the prioritization. We look at data compilation from different databases. That's how we use the IMS, and as well as other tools been used for the IMS itself. So that's something. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you very much. And I'm talking to a very generous donor to try to give us some IM support at global level that could help us to, address this standardization of tools. Hopefully, the funding will come forward and we can move ahead with that. Marie, some question for you. The tool you develop, would you be able to share it with other coordinators? And by the way, just to say, the person who was asking, Mr.
John Edwards.
Yeah, is the coordinator in Palestine. Thank you.
Yes, actually, what I wanted to say is because in what is not like a common situation in Ukraine is UNDP, and who is developing the IMS system is UNOPS. So for UNDP, we had to contract. I had a UN to UN agreement with UNOPS and then pay to develop the IMS system. So I don't know how it would work with other UN agencies, but that's the thing. So we need to have like some specific funding to be able to develop that tool. But I didn't make maybe enough publicity about the IMS system, but it's a work in progress in Ukraine at the moment. But as soon as it will be running, most likely by the end of the year or early next year, we'll be happy to share how it works and how we've developed it. But maybe we can work on developing like a concept on how it works, because I'm assuming that whatever we've been doing in Ukraine or in other countries, similar situations are happening in other countries. So maybe that's, I would say, a proof of concept of how the process is working can maybe help other organizations or other countries.
So May and Daunia and Mary, thank you so much for this very rich presentation, and congratulations to you for doing this work. I know it's hard work, and I'm really encouraging all the partners to participate and contribute to the Mine Action AoR at the country level, to make your work easier, because I know it's often hard to get information and to share and bring everybody around the table. So really, good. Big word of applause from my side, and I'm giving the floor back to Lubna for the next part of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And on behalf of the advisory group, I extend my thanks to each one of the speakers, to Christelle, to May, to Daunia, and to Marie for this insightful, rich, and very informative presentations. And I also want to thank all the participants of this EORE Hour for your engagement and also for your contributions through the questions. So looking ahead, I'm excited to announce that for our next EORE Hour, which will be held on the last Wednesday of November, it's going to be hosted by Catholic Relief Services Vietnam, and I'll be sharing the flyer with all the details soon with all of the people who register to the EORE Hour. So please be on the lookout for that. And to the EORE Mine Action community, I warmly encourage you to consider hosting a future EORE Hour. You can find all the necessary information in the concept note that we have available on the EORE Advisory Group webpage. I've previously shared the link and I'm going to share it again with you. So as we prepare to transition to the next segment, which is going to be the networking circle. So this segment, I invite you to stay with us and take the opportunity to connect with other EORE specialists and people from diverse backgrounds in the field. Just to let you know that this segment is not recorded, so I'll stop the recording, and the participation in the networking hour is entirely optional. So we'd love for you to stay and connect. But if you need to leave or prefer not to join, please feel free to log out, and hope to see you next month in our next EORE hour. So for the people staying, for the next 10 to 15 minutes, we'll focus on sharing insights, building connections, and they are going to be guided by the questions that are now on the screen. You will be placed into breakout rooms with minimum 5 participants. So it's like speed networking for a twist. So thanks again for your participation, and I'm going to stop the recording now as we move into the next segment.